start with the arguments made about the correct test. It seems that my learned friend wishes us to argue that your worship is wrong, but we don't have to argue that you are wrong. It is on appeal that we will argue that you are wrong. What we are dealing with today is merely a question of whether there is a realistic probability that another court might come to a different conclusion. In other words, is there a realistic prospect that that will be the case, both on the questions of fact and on the questions of law. So it's crucial to underscore that test. And the exercise is also not a repetition of the case that your ladyship has had. Your ladyship is now functus officio in relation to your judgment. So we don't have to persuade your ladyship that you were wrong. We simply have to show that someone else looking at the same facts might come realistically to a different conclusion. The only argument made by the state, and it's important to examine their case, what they have said now, is around R versus law. That's the only thing they have said. Now, your ladyship, if you contrast that with the case that has been made on behalf of the accused, R versus Blom is one aspect, but there are so many other grounds for leave to appeal that have been advanced. The reality, your worship, is that none of those have been responded to. What you have is just a generic submission that there is no reasonable prospect of success, and there is no reasonable likelihood that a different court looking at the different facts might arrive at a different conclusion. So in effect, you are then not dealing with an application on conviction that has been seriously contested by the state. They've raised only one ground and they've ignored each and every ground, and they've put them under this omnibus category that there is no reasonable prospect. So that's point number one, that actually this is not meaningfully opposed by the state. Point number two is that what that does is that it therefore leaves those grounds uncontested. Now, that has serious implications then for your worship's weighing and assessment. So if you have an accused person that gives you 10 grounds, and you've got the NPA that responds to one ground, and that leaves 9 grounds unopposed, in effect, what does that then do to the court? Is the court now supposed to fill the gap left by the state? I'll tell you why they have taken that approach. It's because they themselves accept that this is a strong application for leave to appeal on fact and on law. So if that is the case, then that the only logical deduction to be drawn from the unserious opposition is that actually this is a cogent application for leave to appeal. Then it leaves your ladyship's role very easy, because you don't have to decide whether you are right or whether you are wrong. Someone else must decide that. The job is very easy. The High Court must make a fresh evaluation of the evidence and make a determination whether the convictions were safe or not. That then takes me to the question of sentence. We have a similar approach taken by the state. This is what they said. I noted it down. They say, we've asked for 15 years, we've got 5 years in one and 2 years in the other. We are very happy with that. Of course they are. But the question is whether there is a realistic chance that someone else looking at these facts might arrive at a different conclusion, or whether or not there is a reasonable likelihood of success on the appeal against sentence. If I have to weigh, and I'm not doing that weighing now, the two appeals, the conviction and the sentence appeals, I would say the sentence appeal enjoys the most excellent prospects of success. One, because you are not dealing with a field that is occupied by judicial precedent. And it is correct as a matter of law, if you are not dealing with a field that is occupied by consistent precedent, to say the higher court must relocate it. And that is not because your worship is admitting that you were wrong. Your worship is simply saying there are different views in this field of law, and let the higher court relook at this and make a determination. Just take one example on the discharge law. Look at the 4 cases we looked at yesterday, if you remember all of them, your worship. You know, none of them resulted in direct incarceration, none, 0. And you look at the case presented by the state, they are unable to point to a single case of a discharge that results in direct imprisonment or discharge at all. Then you look at your ladyship's finding, count 2, which is the discharge count. You've sent Mr. Malema to 2 years direct imprisonment. Now, can you be confident that there is no other court that realistically may come to a different conclusion? I think that if you took that view, your leadership would probably fall into an error. Even if you look at count 1, the possession charge, it is correct what my learned friend said, that these cases differ. Yesterday I took your lordship to 7 different authorities. I picked 3 where there have been fines of as low as 2,000 rands in circumstances where there have been injuries. So even that, an imposition of 5 years is not a safe direct incarceration, no option of a fine, no suspension. It's not necessarily a safe imposition. So it would be proper for your leadership to say, look, I've done my job. Now let the High Court relook at this matter and decide what it wishes to do. I'm not going to complain about the declaration that Mr. Malema is not fit to possess a firearm because it follows from the convictions. If those convictions stand, then there's no problem with that. But if those convictions, there's a realistic chance of setting them aside, then as a matter of logic, the balance follows. So what am I saying then on sentence? I'm saying to your leadership that it is possible that someone else, realistically possible, that someone else will say this sentence induces a sense of shock. Now we can say that, my lady, without fighting with your leadership about who introduced politics in court. We can say that purely on judicial precedent. And we can say that purely on application of legal principles. And when your leadership considers this, your leadership, we accept, will be dispassionate. And your leadership will be blind to the politicians sitting behind you and will be looking at the accused without identity. And then decide, well, does he deserve to have his case re-evaluated by a higher court or not? Now, if your leadership even refused that, then we will say that your leadership is not acting in accordance with the oath of office. But we trust your leadership that you will act in accordance with the judicial oath of office and send the matter to the High Court, let them re-evaluate it. They might agree with your leadership, but there have been many instances before that you think you are right. I've been there myself. I think I'm right, and then 5 judges sitting in the Supreme Court of Appeal say, sorry, acting judge, you were wrong. And that's where we are today. Your leadership may be overturned. And so we ask, therefore, with respect, this is a discretionary matter, but at the same time, it is a matter of application of settled legal rules. So we would therefore ask that you send the conviction, you send the sentence to the High Court, as you please. I just wanted to a political speech.